Hello, night traveler. You've reached that soft edge of the day where the noise thins out, your jaw unclenches, and the world stops demanding you perform. Tonight you don't have to fix anything. You only have to arrive. In front of you, a jungle breathes in layered greens, and a gentle rain threads silver lines between leaves. The air smells like wet earth and bruised citrus, with a faint ribbon of wood smoke somewhere ahead. And yes, tiny reality check. You probably won't survive this. At least not as the restless version of you who thinks you can outwalk weather, outstare mosquitoes, and outsmart a path that keeps changing its mind. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and let me know how your day has really been, your worries, your exhaustion, or even a tiny joy that made you smile. I'm here to truly listen and offer the most sincere, heartfelt advice I can. Now, turn off the lights, take a deep, slow breath, let your tiredness melt away, and gently close your eyes. Let's drift together into tonight's dreamlike lands. And tomorrow morning, if you still remember, send me a message and tell me what you dreamed. You move forward anyway, because you always do. The path is a brown ribbon of packed soil and slick roots, shining where the rain kisses it. Ferns lean in, vines hang in loose loops. Water beads on broad leaves and falls in slow drops, tapping your shoulders and sliding down your neck like cool fingers trying to calm you down. The rain is not a storm, it's a steady whisper. It finds every gap in your clothing with patient insistence. Your shoes gather mud. The canopy turns the light green and soft, as if you've slipped into shallow water. You try to keep your pace because part of you still believes speed is a solution, but the ground keeps suggesting you slow down. A root catches your foot. You steady yourself with a hand against a tree trunk, feeling bark slick with rain. Your breathing sounds too loud, and the jungle answers with quieter sounds. Drip, buzz, hush. A mosquito lands on your wrist like it owns your skin. You let it be. Tonight you're too tired to negotiate. Then you notice smoke. Not a dramatic plume, just a thin, pale thread curling upward between trunks, steady enough to feel intentional. You follow it the way you follow hope when it doesn't shout. The path miraculously agrees. Stones appear where your feet need them. Your shoulders drop like they've been waiting for permission. At the edge of the trees, figures stand with the stillness of people who know they belong. Elders, hair silvered or dark and braided, cloth draped simply, made for living. Their faces hold a calm that makes your rushing thoughts feel a little embarrassed. No voices reach you. There is only a slow lift of a hand, a small tilt of a chin that guides you forward. Another tiny motion, almost tender, reminds your lungs what to do. You breathe in damp air, leaf sap, and wet stone. You breathe out longer than you have all day. Your body realizes it has been bracing for impact, and it loosens. Your thoughts, which had been sprinting for hours, begin to walk. They turn, and you follow. The jungle opens into a clearing ringed with plants and low walls of stacked stone. Thatched roofs rise from it, angled like folded wings, their edges darkened by rain. Everything is slick and shining. Everything feels quietly occupied, as if the village runs on a different tempo than the outside world. You are guided beneath a palm-thatched shelter supported by smooth wooden posts. The rain hits the roof and becomes music, soft drumming, steady and reassuring. Underneath, the air is cooler and smells faintly of smoke and herbs. The change is immediate. Your skin stops flinching from the cold and your breath stops fighting the humidity. One elder places a woven mat near your feet. Another sets a small clay bowl beside you, not offered with ceremony, simply placed like a kindness that doesn't need applause. Their movements are quiet and unhurried, the way a person moves when they trust time. Outside the shelter, the village continues in soft motion, a figure passing with leaves, a dog shaking rein and settling down, a cooking fire breathing somewhere close. The water is everywhere, but it no longer feels like a warning. It feels like a lullaby. You notice your heartbeat syncing with the roof's gentle drum. You notice the urgent list of worries trying to line up at the door, seeing the shelter's quiet authority, and, amazingly, waiting outside. And you learned the first lesson of this place without anyone needing to explain it. You don't have to fight the rain. You can let it be what it is. You can let yourself be what you are. Tired, human, and, for a while, held beneath a roof that listens. Your clothes cling to you in that damp, heroic way only rain can achieve, and the shelter treats your dripping like it's normal, like you're not the main event, like you're simply a person who got caught outside, because you are. The elder's calm doesn't scold you for being unprepared. It quietly rearranges you. You shift onto the woven mat and feel how it gives slightly, springy and patient, made to hold bodies that have been tired for a long time. Water threads down your sleeves and collects at your fingertips. You try not to look guilty about the puddle forming under you, but guilt is just extra luggage. A bundle of leaves is placed near your hands, and a gentle motion guides you to press them against your skin. The scent is sharp at first, green and resinous. Then it softens into something like tea and clean wood. You wipe rain from your forearms, the back of your neck, your hairline, and the simple act feels like being cared for without being fussed over. Another steady gesture indicates your shoes. You loosen them, peel them off, and the relief is immediate, like your feet have been holding a private argument the whole walk. Mud lets go with a reluctant slurp. Your toes meet cool air. A thick hand-woven cloth appears, smelling faintly of smoke, and you wrap it around your shoulders, becoming a slightly more respectable creature. The roof above you keeps drumming. Up close, you can see its quiet intelligence. Palm fronds overlap like scales, angled so water slides away instead of pooling. The layers hush the world, but they still let air move through. Rain runs along the thatch, gathers at the edge, and drops in a clean line beyond the shelter's boundary, as if the roof has drawn a polite circle and told the water where it may fall. Nothing here is perfect in a straight-line modern way. The poles are smooth but honest about being wood. The lashings are fiber and not metal and screw. The roofline has a gentle irregularity that somehow makes it stronger, the way a river bends because it has learned where pressure gathers. The whole structure looks like it is cooperating with the weather instead of challenging it. Your city-trained brain expects shelter to feel like a wall. Here, shelter feels like an ear. The thatch doesn't just block rain, it translates it into rhythm. The open sides invite breeze, so smoke can leave, heat can rise, and you can keep breathing, as if breathing is the point. You watch runoff spill in thin threads. Each thread forms, falls, disappears, reforms. Your eyes follow the pattern and your thoughts, those jumpy little animals, start to curl up. In the half-light, simple objects rest where they belong. Baskets, cord, a smooth stone darkened by touch. Nothing screams for attention, everything waits. A shallow bowl is nudged closer, and you take a sip of warm water that tastes faintly of leaves. It travels down your throat like a gentle hand smoothing a wrinkle from a sheet. You feel grateful and also relieved that no one demands you perform gratitude. It's offered, you receive it, the moment moves on. Your body begins to change its mind about panic. The tiny shiver you didn't notice before fades. Your exhale lengthens. Your shoulders stop hovering near your ears. The rain outside keeps whispering, but under the roof it becomes something steadier, like a metronome for rest. You look out through the curtain of water and see the village softened by wet light, thatched roofs at different heights, paths of stone and earth, plants arranged with intention. The rain doesn't empty the place, it edits it. Greens deepen. Brown earth turns rich and glossy. Even smoke seems more tender as it dissolves into the damp air. The elders remain near, not hovering, simply present, like stones warmed by sun, steady, unhurried, quietly reassuring. You realize you're being sheltered in more than one way. The roof keeps water off your head. Their attention keeps your spiraling thoughts from taking over. And then you notice the small details that explain everything. Posts set on stones so wood doesn't drink from the soil. The roof's edge positioned so runoff falls away from the walking paths. The pitch changing slightly where wind tends to push hardest. This isn't a fight against the jungle. This is partnership. You sit back, wrapped and warmer, and let the drumming roof do its work. The rain keeps coming, gentle and persistent, but it no longer feels like something happening to you. It feels like something happening around you, while you are allowed, finally, to simply be. The moment your body remembers it can be warm, it starts asking for other impossible luxuries, like movement that isn't rushed, like curiosity that isn't anxious. The elders don't pull you from the mat the way a schedule would. They wait until you're ready, in the slow, obvious way. Your breath steadies, your hands stop fidgeting, your eyes begin to look outward instead of inward. A gentle motion invites you up. You rise, still wrapped in the smoke-scented cloth, and your bare feet meet the shelter's packed earth floor. It's cool and firm, not unpleasant, honest. The rain continues its soft percussion above you, but now it's background music to a different kind of journey. You step out under the roof's edge and immediately feel the village's air, damp and alive. Rain falls in fine threads beyond the clearing's boundary, turning the clearing into a shimmering curtain. The path ahead is a narrow line of stones set into the ground, like the village has already anticipated your slippery clumsiness and decided to help without mentioning it. You follow the elders at an unhurried pace that feels strangely radical. Every step is careful, not fearful. The stones are dark with rain, their tops slightly rounded from years of feet. Between them, the earth is soft but not muddy, held together by roots and the quiet work of ground cover plants. You notice how the village doesn't flatten the jungle, it edits it, guiding it into shapes that fit human hands. As you walk, you learn the etiquette of attention. Where you place your feet matters, not in a punishing way, more like a courtesy. You avoid stepping on certain small plants that grow at the edges of the stones. You keep your weight centered, letting your toes feel the ground before committing. This is not a place where you stomp through life with your mind elsewhere. The houses are low and welcoming, their roofs layered thick, their walls made from a mix of stone and woven panels. Rainwater runs off the thatch in thin streams, falling into shallow channels that guide it away. Everything has a path. Everything has somewhere to go. You realize your own thoughts could use that kind of design. A small garden appears beside the path, raised beds bordered with stones, leaves slick and shining. Broad green plants stand in neat clusters, and smaller herbs fill gaps like careful handwriting. The scent is bright and wet, crushed leaf, damp soil, a hint of pepper. You notice how the rain doesn't ruin the garden, it feeds it. The plants seem to glow under their own discipline, bending without breaking. Carvings on stone markers sit near doorways, simple symbols worn by time, softened at the edges. They don't scream museum. They feel like living reminders, like someone might touch them absent-mindedly while passing. Your eyes want to decode them, but the village doesn't rush to explain. You're allowed to simply see. The elders guide you through a wider space where the ground opens into a shared courtyard. A fire pit sits at the center, sheltered under its own roof. Smoke rises thinly and disappears into the rain-cooled air. Nearby, baskets are stacked neatly, fibers shining faintly with moisture. The village feels like a body that knows where its organs belong. You pass a low wall where vines hang like green curtains. Beyond it, you glimpse the jungle pressing close, not hostile, just present. The village doesn't pretend it's separate from the wild. It's an arrangement inside it, like a calm thought inside a loud mind. As you move deeper, you begin to notice small rules that aren't written anywhere. You don't step over certain objects placed near thresholds. You pause briefly at a corner where a small stone pile sits, as if acknowledging something unseen. You keep your hands relaxed and your gaze soft. You're not told to behave, you're guided into it through atmosphere, through the elders' steady pace, through the way everything in the village seems to reward gentleness. Rain beads on your hair and runs down your temple. You don't wipe it away immediately. You let it slide. It's odd how quickly you adapt when no one is judging you for being human. The path curves and you catch sight of a thatched roof larger than the others, its edges extending like protective arms. The elders angle toward it, and your steps follow. Your bare feet feel the temperature change as you cross from rain-darkened stone to drier earth under the eaves. The village breathes around you. Quiet work, soft movement, a sense of belonging that doesn't demand you earn it. You realize you've been walking for a while, but you aren't tired in the same way. This kind of walking doesn't steal from you. It gives back. It makes space in your head. It turns the rain into a companion instead of an inconvenience. And somewhere between one careful step and the next, you feel something shift. The part of you that arrived as a stranger begins to settle into the village's rhythm, like a heartbeat sinking to a drum you didn't know you needed. That larger roof gathers you in like a steady exhale. The moment you step beneath it, the air changes, warmer, drier, and threaded with the smell of smoke that has had time to become gentle. Rain still falls outside in patient lines, but here the sound is softened, translated again into that quiet drum you're starting to trust more than your own anxious thoughts. The hearth sits at the center, not dramatic, not theatrical, just a living point of warmth. Its fire is small and well-fed, flames tucked low, as if the village has learned that a good fire doesn't need to show off. Smoke rises in thin ribbons, guided upward by the roof's shape, slipping out through gaps like a practiced breath. You watch it and realize you've been holding your own breath too often in your life, as if oxygen has a fee. Around the hearth, the space is organized the way a calm mind is organized. Not sterile, not perfect, but intentional. Clay pots rest near the heat, their surfaces darkened by years of use. Smooth stones form a border where embers can't roll away. Baskets sit off to the side, woven tight, each one shaped for a purpose that makes itself obvious the longer you stare. Nothing is random, nothing is frantic. Your attention is gently guided toward the food work happening here, and you feel an old part of you, the part that thinks food appears in plastic, quietly embarrassed. Maize is everywhere in forms that look simple until you realize how much patience lives inside simplicity. A bowl holds kernels pale and swollen from soaking, as if they've been allowed to soften their stubbornness. Another container holds ground masa, thick and smooth, the texture of something that's been loved into obedience. Hands move steadily near the fire, shaping and turning, not with urgency but with rhythm. The motions repeat: press, turn, set down, gather, fold, smooth. The repetition is soothing in the way rain is soothing, predictable, honest, unfussy. It isn't production, it's practice. You notice how nobody rushes the heat. The fire does its work at its pace, and everyone else agrees to match it. A vessel is lifted closer to the warmth, and the scent that rises makes your eyes soften. Cacao, earthy, bitter, deep, like the jungle decided to become drinkable. It isn't sweet in the loud way modern sweetness shouts. It's complex and grounding, the kind of flavor that doesn't entertain you so much as it steadies you. Even the smell feels like it has weight, like it could press your thoughts gently back into your body. You sit nearby, wrapped in your cloth, and the village lets you watch without making you feel like an outsider with a camera brain. You're just another warm animal near a fire. Rain ticks beyond the roof. Smoke threads upward. Somewhere a dog shifts and resettles with the seriousness of a creature committed to comfort. The routine continues, and you begin to recognize that this is where the village's day lives, in the small agreements with heat and grain and time. Maize is not just a staple, it is a schedule. It is a reason to gather. It is a way to turn the day into something you can hold. You realize how much of your own life is built on rushing between tasks without letting any of them become a place. Here, even preparation feels like ceremony, but not in the stiff, formal way your mind imagines when it hears the word. Ceremony here is simply attention given fully. A pot is rinsed carefully. A surface is wiped with the same care someone might give a sleeping child's forehead. Ash is moved aside so the fire can breathe. The smallest actions are done as if they matter, because they do. You notice little customs woven into the process. Ingredients are handled with a respect that isn't sentimental. Food isn't tossed around like it's infinite. Water is used thoughtfully, not wasted. The fire is fed in a way that keeps it alive, but not wild. Even your body responds to this ethic. You stop fidgeting. You stop scanning for the next thing. You begin to be where you are. The rain outside thickens for a moment, still gentle but fuller. The roof answers with a deeper drum. You remember how you stumbled in earlier, wet and convinced the world was out to inconvenience you? Now the rain feels like it belongs here, like it's part of the recipe. You can almost imagine the village listening to it, the way you're listening to the fire. Cacao's scent lingers, and you feel your mind settle into it. There's a quiet sarcasm in the way your modern self reacts, because of course the thing that calms you isn't another screen or another plan. It's a hearth, it's grain, it's smoke. It's the radical luxury of not being hurried. You watch the food being finished, the fire tended down to an even glow. You watch how the space holds everyone without crowding, how the roof shelters without ceiling, how the routine feeds more than hunger, and a simple truth settles into you as softly as ash. The real ingredient here isn't maize or cacao or flame, it's the way attention is poured into every small step, turning an ordinary meal into a gentle anchor, and turning you, without anyone saying a word, into someone who can finally start to rest. When the hearth settles into a quieter glow, your body feels newly arranged, like someone has taken all your loose nerves and folded them neatly. The rain still drums the roofs outside, steady and unbothered, but now you can hear other sounds underneath it. Water moving along channels, leaves shedding droplets, a distant hush that feels less like silence and more like the village holding its breath on purpose. The elders guide you out from the warmth in a way that doesn't yank you back into the world. You step onto the stone path again, bare feet meeting cool surfaces that have been kissed by rain. The cloth around your shoulders hangs heavier now, damp at the edges, and you realize you've stopped resenting moisture as if it's a personal attack. The jungle doesn't care about your preferences. Somehow, that's comforting. You walk with the same unhurried pace as before. The village shifts around you. Low roofs, woven walls, green gardens, smoke thinning into the wet air. And then, gradually, the path angles toward darker trees. The stones underfoot change shape, fewer rounded stepping stones, more flat slabs set like careful punctuation. The ground begins to slope. The air cools in a way that feels clean, and you catch the scent of limestone, chalky and ancient beneath the rain's freshness. The jungle canopy thickens again, and the light turns dimmer, as if you're walking into a shaded room. You're tempted to speed up because your instincts still believe faster is safer, but the elder's steady pace holds you in place like a hand on your shoulder. The sound arrives before the sight. Water, not loud, not rushing, just present. A low, continuous murmur threaded through the rain, like a second heartbeat. You follow it down a narrow corridor of trees where roots lace the ground and vines hang like wet ropes. Your feet learn the path's logic. Step here, avoid there, soften your weight. Don't stomp like you're trying to prove a point. Then the space opens, and the cenote reveals itself in quiet grandeur. It's a pool of water cradled by stone, a circular mouth of the earth filled with darkness and reflected green. The rain stipples the surface with tiny rings, each one expanding, like the water is practicing letting go. Ferns cling to the rim. Moss darkens the stone in velvety patches. Long roots dangle from above in thin strands, reaching toward the pool like careful fingers. The air here is cooler, heavy with mineral dampness, and it makes you feel smaller in a way that isn't humiliating, more like relief. You've spent so much time being the center of your own problems. Here, you are simply one small visitor at the edge of something that was deep before your worries existed. You are guided to stand on a flatter stretch of rock. The stone is slick, and you feel the gentle warning in it. Don't get cocky. The elder's movements become even slower here. Not dramatic, just more deliberate, like this is a place that deserves extra care. Without words, the rules arrive. You keep your steps measured. You don't flail your arms. You don't lean too far forward. You don't throw anything. You don't treat the water like a photo opportunity. You let your gaze soften rather than pierce. You watch, and in watching you begin to understand that respect isn't a performance, it's a posture. A small bowl appears again, clay and dark, and it holds water drawn from the cenote or warmed nearby. Hard to tell, because in this place the line between water you drink and water you honor feels thinner. Emotion guides your hands to it. You dip your fingers in and touch the water to your forehead, then the back of your neck, then your wrists. The water is cool and startling and immediate, like it's waking up parts of you that have been numb for months. You feel your skin goosebump. You feel your thoughts quiet. The rain continues to fall in soft threads, and now it feels like part of the ritual rather than an interruption. The droplets land on the pool and disappear into it, as if being welcomed. You imagine, without needing anyone to explain, that this water is not just water. It's a memory keeper, a mirror, a reservoir of seasons. It collects sky and leaf and time, and it holds them without complaint. You kneel carefully, letting your knees hover over the stone rather than pressing down too hard. You cup a little water in your hands. It slips through your fingers almost immediately, because water does not care about your grip. You bring what you can to your lips and taste it, clean, mineral, faintly sweet in a stone way, like the earth has its own quiet flavor. It doesn't taste like a bottled promise. It tastes like honesty. Your chest loosens on an exhale you didn't plan. Your shoulders drop. Your jaw unclenches. For a moment you think about how you usually treat water, as a background utility, as something that arrives from a tap with no story attached. Here, water has a story whether you ask for it or not. The cenote's depth makes you aware of depth in yourself. Not the dramatic kind, just the steady truth that you carry more than you admit, and you've been spilling yourself into tasks and screens and noise without ever refilling in a way that counts. You rinse your hands again, slowly. The elders remain nearby, not hovering, simply anchoring the space with their calm presence. The jungle around the cenote feels hushed, as if even the insects have turned down their volume. The rain's pattern on the water becomes hypnotic, and your eyes follow the rings outward until your thoughts begin to do the same, spreading, softening, dissolving. You rise carefully, and before you leave the edge, you pause, not because someone tells you to, but because your body understands that gratitude is part of balance. You let your breath lengthen. You let your attention rest on the water one last time. And in that quiet pause, the village's lesson settles into you like cool water into warm skin. Take only what you need, move gently, and remember that even rain, especially rain, can be a blessing when you stop trying to outrun it. You step away from the cenote with that cool water clarity still resting on your skin, as if the earth has pressed a damp, calming hand to your forehead and told your thoughts to sit down. The rain continues, gentle and steady, and your feet find the stone path again without fuss. Back in the village, everything feels slightly brighter, not because the clouds lift, but because you're no longer squinting through your own urgency. The elders guide you toward a sheltered workspace tucked between two thatched structures, where the air smells of wet palm and smoke-dried fiber. The roof above is lower here, making the space feel intimate, like a nook meant for hands and patience rather than big public movement. Rainwater slides down the roof's edge in thin strings, and beyond that boundary, the village stays soft and green, edited by drizzle. On the packed earth floor, bundles of plant fibers rest like sleeping animals. Pale strands, darker cords, strips of dried palm. Nearby, a low wooden frame leans against a post, its surface worn smooth. Spools of twine sit in baskets. A stone weight anchors one end of a cord, the way a calm person anchors a thought. You sit, and your knees fold easily this time. Your hands hover like they're waiting to be told what to do, but no one instructs you with words. Instead, motions appear, slow, simple, unmistakable. A length of fiber is placed into your palm. It feels light, rough, and alive with texture, as if it still remembers being a leaf. You run it between your fingers. It catches slightly on your skin, not painful, just honest. Your modern fingertips trained on glass screens look a little offended at first. Then they adjust. They start listening. The elders show you the first step with their own hands. Twist, fold, twist again. The fiber becomes cord not through force, but through steady repetition. You try to copy. Your first attempt is the enthusiastic mess of someone who believes effort can replace technique. The cord frays, the twist loosens, the strands splay like unruly thoughts. You exhale, and the rain above you answers with its slow drumming, almost as if it's reminding you that the world isn't impressed by rushing. You try again, slower. Twist, fold, twist. Your fingers begin to find a rhythm, and with rhythm comes a small miracle. The cord starts to hold. It isn't perfect. It doesn't have to be. The village doesn't reward perfection here. It rewards presence. You feel your shoulders soften as your hands repeat the motion. The fiber warms slightly from your touch. The cord grows longer by millimeters, then centimeters, then a quiet, satisfying length that proves you can build something without hurrying it into existence. A simple knot is demonstrated, the kind of knot you've probably tied 1,000 times in your life, but never with this much attention. Loop, pass, tighten. Not yanked, just snug. The knot sits like a small, calm decision. You imitate it, and your knot comes out lopsided, like it's leaning away from responsibility. You adjust. You loosen. You try again. This time you tighten gently, feeling the fibers settle into each other like they've been waiting for agreement. The knot holds. It doesn't brag about it. It simply does its job. Your breathing matches your hands now. Slow in, slow out, twist and fold, loop and settle. This is how the village teaches, not by filling your head, but by guiding your body into calm competence. The repetition becomes a kind of sleep spell. You realize your brain can't sprint while your fingers move like this. It tries, of course. Your brain is dramatic and loves a to-do list, but the steady work keeps pulling you back. Here, now, this strand, this knot, this breath. You're shown a small weaving frame, no bigger than a tray. Thin cords are stretched across it, anchored at the top and bottom. The warp lines look like quiet rain, parallel, patient, waiting. A strand of weft is placed into your hand, and you begin to weave. Over, under, simple as a heartbeat. At first your weaving is uneven. Some rows bunch tight, others sag. You start to feel that familiar itch of self-criticism rising, sharpening its tiny teeth. Then you notice the village around you. No one is judging your crooked rows. No one is making you feel like a beginner is a crime. The elder's calm presence is a soft fence around your nervousness, keeping it from bolting. So you do the only thing that works. You keep going. Over, under, over, under. The pattern builds, and your eyes begin to soften at the repetition. Rain drums the roof, smoke lingers in the air like a warm thread. Your woven cloth grows into a small rectangle, imperfect, but real. A little tension in your chest unwinds, as if each pass of fiber is gently pulling a knot loose inside you. You start noticing how the materials carry their own story. Fibers harvested, dried, softened. Cord twisted strong enough to lash a roof, tie a basket, carry weight. The same motions you're doing, twist, fold, knot, weave, appear everywhere in the village. In the roof above, in the baskets near the hearth, in the ties that hold walls steady against wind. This isn't craft as hobby. It's craft as living infrastructure. It's the village's quiet way of saying, patience makes things that last. Your hands tire a little, but it's a good tired, the kind that doesn't drain you, the kind that grounds you. Your fingers become slightly sore, and instead of resenting it, you feel strangely proud. This ache belongs to a real action, not to scrolling through stress until your thumb cramps and your mind feels hollow. When you finally pause, you look down at what you've made. A small woven piece, a length of cord with a solid knot. Not impressive to a world obsessed with speed and shine, but meaningful in a different economy, the economy of calm. You sit there a moment longer, letting your hands rest in your lap. Rain continues its gentle work outside, and you realize something quietly revolutionary. The same patience that turns fiber into cord can turn a frantic mind into a steady one, if you keep threading your attention through the present, over and under, until the pattern holds. Your hands still remember the weave, tiny grooves of fiber pressed into your fingertips, the soft ache of doing something real. When you stand and step back into the village air, that calm follows you like a shawl you forgot you were wearing. Rain continues its steady percussion on every roof it touches, and the world seems arranged around it. Paths that guide runoff, eaves that catch wind, courtyards that hold warmth. Even your thoughts, usually feral, move a little more politely. The elders lead you along a narrow lane where the stones underfoot are older than your worries. The village feels rinsed clean by drizzle, colors deepened and edges softened. Leaves shine, moss glows darkly against limestone. Smoke from distant hearths thins into the wet air like a slow sigh. You pass woven walls that breathe. And you notice how everything here is designed to let life move through rather than get trapped. Then you arrive at a long stretch of wall sheltered under a generous roof, an in-between place, neither fully inside nor outside. The surface is plastered smooth in some sections, rougher in others where time has nibbled. On it, painted forms emerge, reds made from earth, blacks deep as rain-soaked bark, pale lines that catch the low light. The images aren't decorations in the casual sense. They sit with intention, like a memory that refuses to be forgotten. You draw closer, careful not to brush damp cloth against the paint. The roof above hushes the rain's sharpest sounds, turning them into a low, steady heartbeat. Your breathing naturally quiets, the way it does near the cenote, the way it did near the hearth, as if places like this teach your lungs how to behave. The wall holds scenes without needing words. You see figures rendered in profile, bodies elongated in that stylized way that makes them feel both human and symbolic. Some wear elaborate headdresses, feathers, patterns, shapes that suggest power and ceremony. Others carry bundles, tools, vessels. There are plats, too, drawn with the kind of attention that comes from reliance, leaves, blossoms, maze-like forms, curling vines. Animals appear in the margins, birds perhaps, and shapes that hint at jaguar strength or serpent motion, though the rain-softened light keeps them a little dreamlike. You realize you're watching a language that doesn't require sound. It's a story told to the eyes, to the part of you that understands meaning through shape and repetition. Your modern brain wants captions. It wants a neat summary. But the wall doesn't care what your brain wants. It offers you images and trusts you to sit with them until they start speaking in their own way. The elders guide your attention, subtle shifts of body, a steady hand hovering near a painted sequence, toward patterns that repeat. A cluster of symbols appears again and again, arranged like stepping stones in a river. Some look like abstract faces, some like simple geometric marks, some like small creatures reduced to their essence. You don't claim to read them, but you begin to sense their function. Markers of time, names, events, counts, offerings, seasons. The wall feels like a woven cloth of memory, and suddenly you understand why the weaving calmed you, because repetition is how meaning becomes durable. Your eyes travel along the mural, and the rain outside becomes a metronome for your gaze. You notice that the story doesn't move in a straight line the way your life insists on moving. It loops. Themes return. Images echo earlier images with small changes, like the village itself. Hearth to water, water to fiber, fiber to roof, roof back to rain. A circle, not a sprint. Nearby, stone markers stand like quiet elders of their own. Stelae, carved surfaces worn by touch and weather. Their edges are softened, but the carved lines remain surprisingly clear, as if time has decided these marks are worth preserving. You run your fingertips just above the grooves without pressing, feeling the temptation to connect directly with the past. The stone is cool, damp at the surface, and it seems to hold cold like the cenote holds water, patiently, without complaint. The carvings show more figures, more symbols, more careful geometry. Some shapes feel like calendars, interlocking forms, repeated motifs that suggest cycles and counting. You think about how your own calendar is a list of obligations that barely leaves room for breath. Here, time looks like something you live inside, something you honor and observe, not an enemy to defeat. A drip falls from the roof edge, lands on stone, and breaks into tiny beads that scatter and vanish. The small sound is oddly loud in the quiet. Your mind follows it, then returns to the mural, and you begin to feel the wall's deeper purpose. It is not just telling someone what happened, it is holding a way of seeing. It is reminding anyone who passes that they belong to a longer story than their individual panic. You think about your own life's record, messages, photos, files, half-finished notes, scattered across devices, fragile as mist. Here, memory is anchored in plaster and stone and pigment that knows how to endure humidity, sun, and the slow bite of seasons. It's not about perfection. Some sections are faded, some cracked, but even the cracks feel honest, like wrinkles on a face that has laughed and lived. The rain shifts slightly, easing for a moment, then returning to its soft insistence. Under the roof, the sound is soothing, almost hypnotic. You remember the cacao scent near the hearth, the mineral taste at the cenote, the fiber tightening under your fingers. All of it begins to braid together inside you, like threads becoming cord. You're not just visiting a village, you're being rewoven by it. You stand a little longer, letting the images settle into you without forcing interpretation. You let them be what they are, quiet messengers across time. And as your eyelids grow heavier, you realize the wall has already done its gentle work. It has taught you that stories don't always need words to change you. Sometimes they only need you to slow down enough to see them. The wall's painted figures stay behind your eyes as you turn away, like a soft afterimage. Rain keeps stitching the village together, roof to path, leaf to stone, and your body moves through it with a new kind of quiet, as if you finally stopped arguing with weather. You follow the elders back along the lane, past gardens shining dark green, past baskets tucked under eaves, past the little channels that guide runoff away, like the village is politely escorting every droplet to its destination. The air tastes clean, and your thoughts don't immediately reach for a problem. For once, your mind behaves like a guest. Then the rhythm stutters. It isn't loud. Nothing here is loud. It's in the way one elder pauses at a doorway, the way another hand hovers over an empty space, the way the village's steady tempo, so like the roof's rain drum, misses a beat. You're used to trouble being announced. Here, trouble arrives as a quiet imbalance. You step closer to a sheltered area, where small items rest in deliberate arrangement. Clay bowls, bundles of dried herbs, lengths of cord, a few polished stones worn smooth by touch. Among them is a place that seems reserved, an invisible outline in the order of things. It's empty now. And emptiness has a way of speaking when everything else is so intentional. Hands begin to search, carefully. A woven tray is lifted and turned. A basket lid tips back. Fingers move through fibers with respect, not rummaging but checking, like you check a sleeping child's blanket without waking them. The rain outside keeps tapping, patient and indifferent, and you feel a knot form low in your stomach. Your modern brain tries to label it lost item, replaceable, minor inconvenience. The elder's stillness corrects you. This place runs on attention. So when something goes missing, it's not just an object, it's a gap in the pattern. You are guided, without words, into the edge of the circle, not as a suspect, not as a spectator, but as another set of eyes. It's a strange kind of honor, and it makes you want to move carefully, like your feet are suddenly wearing ceremonial shoes. A small bundle is shown to you in gesture and memory. Folded cloth, a neat cord, a bound cluster of dried leaves. You understand what it represents by the care and the handling. An offering bundle, prepared with intention for a place that matters. Now that offering bundle is missing. You glance toward the paths leading outward, the green wall of jungle beyond the village's cleared spaces. Rain makes leaves shine like wet scales. It would be easy for a bundle to slip from a hand, to be set down under an eave and forgotten. to be nudged by wind, to be claimed by a curious animal. Your mind begins spinning possibilities because your mind loves to feel useful by panicking. But the elders don't spin. They slow down even more. They begin with what is nearest, the hearth area where baskets gather, the sheltered corners where water falls cleanly, the ledges near thresholds. You follow their pattern. You look where intention lives. You lift a basket gently and find only the smell of dried palm and faint smoke. You set it back exactly as it was, suddenly aware that even searching has manners here. The absence feels louder because the village is so orderly. Lost doesn't seem to happen often in a place that ties its roofs with knots that hold, and places its tools as if tomorrow deserves to find them waiting. The missing bundle feels less like a mistake and more like a question the village has to answer. A soft gesture points your attention toward the village edge, where stone dissolves into earth and root. Another indicates the sky, still raining, still steady. You understand the silent request, help, but don't bring your usual chaos. You answer with your body. You breathe slowly. You soften your shoulders. You let your eyes do what they were built to do. Notice. And in that noticing, you see one small thing that doesn't match the village's neatness. A faint dark smear on a stone near the courtyard corner, as if wet cloth brushed past. Nearby, a single leaf lies flipped wrong side up, pale underside exposed like a tiny flag. It could be nothing. It could be everything. The elder's attention follows yours, and the air tightens slightly, not with fear, but with purpose. The search is no longer abstract. It has a direction. You feel yourself being folded into the village's careful urgency, another strand added to a cord. Rain continues to drum the roofs as you shift your weight forward, ready to follow that subtle trail toward wherever the missing balance has slipped. You step off the last reliable stone and onto earth that gives slightly under your bare feet, and the village's clean geometry dissolves into the jungle's softer logic. The rain stays gentle, enough to hush the world, not enough to drown it. Yet every root is slick, every leaf shines, and the ground feels like it's quietly testing how much pride you carried out here. You follow the elders along a narrow trace between shrubs and low palms, a path that isn't carved so much as agreed upon. It's the kind of route you'd miss if you were checking your phone. An excellent reminder that you don't have a phone right now, and somehow you are still alive. Their pace stays unhurried, as if the jungle is a familiar room and not a dramatic set designed to humble you. The first clue is not cinematic. It's practical. On the edge of a broad leaf, you spot a tiny fray of fiber, pale against green, caught where something brushed past. You recognize the texture from the weaving space, the same plant strands that warmed under your fingertips. A small piece, hardly worth noticing, except in a place where noticing is the entire point. Your eyes linger, your breath steadies, and you understand that tracking here isn't a chase, it's a slow reading. The rain muffles footfalls, but it also softens evidence. Footprints don't hold their shape long in wet soil. The jungle offers details and then washes them away. You begin to watch the ground the way you watch the cenote's surface, patiently, accepting patterns that appear and vanish. In a patch of exposed earth near a fallen branch, there is a slight depression, a heel mark maybe, filled with rainwater. The edges are already soft, but the shape suggests a step taken with purpose, not wandering. Nearby, a leaf has been snapped cleanly, its wet stem bright like a fresh bruise. It points, unintentionally, toward a corridor of thinner trees. You follow, placing your feet as the village taught you, light, centered, respectful. You avoid stepping on the small plants that stitch the ground together. You don't grab at vines like they owe you support. Your hands stay close. Your gaze stays wide, taking in the whole scene rather than begging for one dramatic sign. When you stop forcing the jungle to speak, it starts showing you things. A bird shifts overhead, quick wings, then stillness. Another answers from deeper in, a short call that feels like a check-in. You notice how the elders pay attention to that, not as superstition, but as information. Birds move when something moves. Insects change their hum when a presence passes. The jungle speaks in volume adjustments. You start listening. You pass a cluster of stones darkened by rain, and on one of them a faint smear appears, darker than the wet rock should be, like damp cloth rubbed and left behind a different kind of moisture. It matches what you saw near the village courtyard. The thread continues. Water slides down your spine under the edge of your cloth wrap, cool and persistent. You remind yourself, gently, because you're trying not to be the loudest thing here, that this rain is the same rain that made the roof sing, the same rain that fed the gardens, the same rain that wrote rings on the cenote. It isn't trying to ruin your day. It is simply being rain. Your job is to stop taking everything personally. You step over a root and nearly slip, catching yourself with a hand against a trunk. The bark is slick. You steady your breathing and move on, slower now, grateful that nobody is keeping score. Ahead, vegetation shows a disturbance, leaves pushed aside in a pattern that doesn't match wind. A thin vine hangs lower than its neighbors, as if it was tugged and didn't quite spring back. Beneath it, a shallow groove in the wet soil suggests something dragged, light, but present. You follow that groove as it curves around a tree with a wide base, then dips into a slight hollow where rainwater gathers. At the hollow's edge lies a loop of cord, darkened by moisture, half buried in mud. Your pulse lifts. You kneel carefully and lift it with 2 fingers. It hangs with the weight of wet fiber, unmistakably made by hands like the ones that showed you how to twist and fold. It isn't the whole offering bundle, but it proves the bundle moved through here, shedding a piece of itself as it went. You hold the loop in your palm like a small promise and look ahead. The light dims by a fraction, not yet night, but leaning that way. The jungle thickens into deeper green, and the elder's attention aims forward, steady and certain. You take one more careful step into the rain-softened corridor, following the quiet signs as the village's balance waits to be restored. The loop of cord sits in your palm like a small, wet heartbeat, and you feel the jungle around you dim another shade, as if someone is slowly turning down a lantern you never asked for. The rain keeps falling, fine and steady, but the light changes in a way rain can't fully explain. Shadows gather under leaves. The green becomes deeper, thicker, almost syrupy. Your eyes start doing that tired thing where they try to hold detail and keep slipping. You lift your gaze and realize the elders have already noticed what you're only now admitting. Night is arriving with quiet authority. They don't rush, and somehow that makes your pulse slow down too. A tiny gesture guides you to tuck the cord loop safely into the fold of your cloth wrap, close to your chest where it won't fall, where it will stay warm against you like a promise. Another subtle motion steers you back along the same careful trace you followed in, because in a jungle like this, prideful improvisation is basically an application for becoming a legend told as a warning. You retrace your steps with a softness you didn't have earlier. Your feet read the ground the way your eyes read the mural, slowly, attentively, letting patterns reveal themselves. The snapped leaf appears again, bright against dark soil. The shallow groove where something dragged is already blurring, rain erasing the sentence as soon as it's written. You feel the urgency of that, how quickly evidence turns back into earth. Yet the elder's calm acts like a weight on the scale, keeping urgency from tipping into panic. The soundscape changes as dusk thickens. The birds that marked your way with small shifts and calls settle down, and in their place the insects rise. First a gentle chorus, then a layered hum that feels like the jungle switching to its night voice. A few sharp chirps punctuate the steady drone, like tiny metronomes insisting you keep time. You notice your own breathing again, louder than you'd like, and you ease it down, not because you're trying to be heroic, but because there's a quiet dignity in not startling everything that's already living its life around you. The rain helps. It pads your movement. It blurs edges. It keeps the jungle from feeling like it's staring. When the village edge finally appears, stones, low roofs, smoke threading upward, you feel relief that's almost physical, like your ribs expanding to make room for air. Under the eaves, the world is a little brighter. Firelight blooms from sheltered hearths, small and controlled, turning wet surfaces into soft mirrors. The rain's drum on thatch becomes more intimate again, closer to lullaby than warning. The elders guide you toward the larger roofed space, and the village seems to receive you the way a body receives a returning breath. People move without rushing, but you can feel the shift, attention concentrating, hands preparing, the air tightening into purpose. The cord loop you found is not treated like a trophy. It's treated like a thread that must be returned to its pattern. You're guided to sit near the hearth where warmth gathers. Your cloth wrap is adjusted around your shoulders, and you realize you've become someone they are looking after, not as a fragile object, but as a guest folded into their responsibility. Your tiredness deepens in the firelight, heavy and sweet, but you stay awake because you sense this is the village's moment of coordination, even without spoken planning. Across the space, preparations begin in the language of movement and objects. Bundles are checked, herbs, cords, woven containers, handled with the same reverent practicality you saw in food work. A few torches are set near the edge of shelter, their heads wrapped in material that will take flame without flaring wildly. A clay bowl is moved closer to the fire, warming something that smells sharp and clean, a scent that clears the nose and steadies the mind. You watch the routine and realize it isn't just about finding a missing bundle, it's about restoring balance with care. Outside, the rain eases for a breath, only a breath, and the sky opens in a narrow window between clouds. You catch a glimpse upward past roof edges and palm fronds, a smear of night, deep blue-black, with a few early stars pricking through like tiny promises. It's not a full, sparkling dome. The clouds still rule most of the sky. But that small glimpse is enough to make you feel oriented again, like someone has placed a quiet compass inside your chest. Then the rain returns, soft and steady, sealing the stars away. The village doesn't mind. The village has roofs that listen. As night settles in fully, the insects thicken their chorus. Somewhere near the path, a dog lifts its head, then lowers it again, satisfied that the world remains mostly acceptable. The fire's crackle becomes the heartbeat you lean toward. Your hands, still remembering the weave, rest in your lap, and you feel the cord loop's damp weight against your chest where you tucked it. Proof you did not imagine the trail. Proof the jungle did not swallow the story entirely. You notice fear trying to creep in at the edges of your tiredness, wearing familiar masks. What if the missing offering matters more than you understand? What if the rain changes? What if the jungle does what jungles do? Your mind is excellent at inventing disasters when given half a shadow and a little silence. And then you notice something stronger than fear, the shared watchfulness around you. People settle into positions that are both relaxed and alert, like they've practiced being calm in the presence of uncertainty. The elders' posture remains steady, their attention wide. No one is frantic, no one is performing courage. They simply hold it, quietly, the way you held fiber until it became cord. Your body borrows that steadiness without asking permission. Your shoulders drop, your jaw loosens. Your thoughts, still restless, begin to curl closer to the warmth. You realize trust is not a grand emotional speech. Trust is a small surrender, letting the village hold the night for you while you keep your eyes open just long enough to learn that you are not alone in the dark. The night holds steady for a while, and you almost believe the rain has settled into a permanent, polite drizzle, like it signed a contract with the village roofs and agreed to behave. Firelight paints warm shapes on wet ground. Smoke rises in thin ribbons. Your eyelids grow heavier, and your thoughts finally start to yawn. Then the jungle changes its mind. You hear it first in the roof's voice. The soft drum deepens into a faster, heavier rhythm. Droplets turn into sheets. Wind arrives in testing pushes that lift the thatch edges and send a faint shiver through the posts. Your body reacts before your brain finishes its dramatic monologue. Skin tightens, breath catches, that old instinct, run, fix, control, tries to stand up and start directing traffic. But the village is already moving, and it moves like someone who has met storms before and doesn't need to introduce themselves. Hands reach for practical things: extra thatch panels, woven mats, clay lids. A torch is pulled farther under cover. Baskets are shifted away from roof edges where runoff now falls in thicker streams. The hearth's fire is coaxed lower, not smothered, not abandoned, just guided into the kind of steady heat that lasts. You follow, because you've learned that the fastest way to panic is to be useless. Water begins to creep along the ground in thin rivulets, searching for the lowest places the way worries search for weak points. The stone channels take most of it, but tonight the rain is generous. A shallow stream forms near the courtyard edge, turning packed earth into slick paste. You step carefully and feel your heel slide, a tiny reminder that pride has terrible traction. A gesture guides you to a stack of flat stones near a wall. You lift one, rain cold and heavier than it looks, and carry it to the place where water is trying to claim the walkway. You set it down, then another, building a quick stepping line the way you learned to weave. One careful placement, then the next, each piece supporting the pattern. The rain hammers harder. Under the main roof, a seam begins to drip. steady drops landing too close to the hearth. The fire answers with a small hiss. Your stomach tightens. If the hearth dies, warmth disappears, food spoils faster, and the village loses its anchor in the night. You grab a woven mat and angle it under the leak, catching the water and guiding it away in a controlled line. It isn't heroic in the movie way. It's heroic in the keep the fire alive way. Wind pushes rain sideways now, spraying fine mist under open edges. People shift items inward, clay pots with lids, bundles of dried maize, cacao vessels, a set of carefully prepared materials, cord, herbs, small ceremonial pieces, gets covered with cloth and moved to the driest corner, away from the floor where water is starting to lick. You watch how nothing is thrown, nothing is yanked. Even under pressure, the village refuses to become chaotic. The ground outside darkens as water pools. A path that was firm earlier turns into a shallow, moving mirror. In places, the channels overflow, and you see the village's design at work. Water is guided away from houses first, then away from hearth spaces, then toward lower ground where plants can drink it. Still, the surge tests every edge. You carry another stone. You help lift a basket onto a higher platform. You wipe rain from a clay lid so it seats cleanly and keeps out moisture. Small actions, repeated, become a net. A heavier gust hits, and the thatch shudders. You hold your breath. Then the lashings, fiber and knot, the kind you tried to make with your clumsy fingers, hold firm. The roof flexes and settles, not rigid, not fragile. Your chest loosens with an unexpected wave of gratitude for knots. The storm peaks, loud enough to make your bones hum. The village becomes a choreography of calm, covering, stacking, guiding water, tending fire. Your own movements fall into that rhythm, and you feel something inside you change. The urge to control turns into the willingness to assist. The fear turns into attention. Eventually, the rain's tempo eases, just slightly. The leak over the hearth slows to a drip. The fire steadies again, small and stubborn. The stepping stones you placed sit like quiet punctuation marks in the mud. In the warm corner, the covered bundles remain dry, protected. You sink back on your heels for a moment, breath moving slow and deep, listening to the roof's returning lullaby. And you understand the trial wasn't really the storm. The trial was whether you could stay gentle while the world got loud. And tonight, held by the village's calm, you do. The rain doesn't stop so much as it tires itself out. It goes from hammering to insisting, from insisting to whispering, until the roof's drum becomes soft again, closer to breath than battle. The puddles remain, glossy and dark, holding little trembling reflections of firelight. Your hands feel warm and used, and your body carries that good, grounded tired that comes from doing what matters instead of performing worry. The village settles into its steady shape again, not instantly, but with the quiet competence of people who have learned that restoration is just another routine. Mats are shaken and rehung. Baskets are checked for damp corners. The stones you placed remain, small and practical, like punctuation marks in a sentence that almost became a flood. And then the missing offering returns to the center of attention, not as a crisis, not as drama, but as unfinished business. The elder's gaze moves from the roofline to the channels, to the edge of the courtyard where runoff still trickles, and you feel it. The storm didn't only test the village's shelter, it rearranged the ground. Your hand finds the fold of cloth at your chest where the loop of cord sits damp and patient. It's a reminder that the trail was real, that the bundle traveled somewhere beyond the village's neat lines. Now, with water having rushed and swirled through every low spot, there's a new possibility that feels both obvious and humbling. The jungle doesn't always take things, sometimes it simply moves them. You follow the elders back toward the village edge where channels widen and disappear into darker earth. Your bare feet meet slick stone, then soft mud. You step lightly, remembering how the village taught you to move, respectful, measured, present. The rain has left everything glistening, and even the air feels washed, as if the storm scrubbed the night clean. Near the lowest point of the courtyard, where runoff collects before slipping away, the elders pause. You see why. Debris has gathered, leaves plastered together, small sticks, a mat of green that looks like the jungle's hair combed into a pile. It's not trash in the careless sense. It's the storm's record of what it touched. The elders begin to sort through it with the same attention they use for food and fiber, hands steady, movements gentle, as if even storm debris deserves manners. You kneel beside them, careful where your knees land, and you help lift wet leaves one by one, letting water drip back into the channel in clean threads. The work is slow, almost meditative. The roof's earlier drumming has become a distant hush. Your breath falls into the rhythm of lift, check, set aside. At first you find only ordinary things: leaves, twigs, a small fruit knocked down by wind. Your modern brain tries to get impatient because it believes solutions should have dramatic solutions. The village's pace corrects you again. Here, solutions are often just patience wearing practical clothes. Then your fingertips brush fabric. Not a whole bundle, not a proud, neatly tied offering, just a corner of cloth caught beneath a layer of leaves. Your pulse rises, small and clean, like a match struck carefully. You lift the leaves away, and more cloth appears, darkened by water, but intact. A cord lies across it, half buried in mud, the same kind of cord you learned to twist and knot. You ease it free the way you would ease a sleeping animal from a snare, slowly, without jerking. Mud clings, water drips. The bundle's shape is slightly misshapen, but it's there, real, recovered, waiting. You hold it in both hands, feeling its weight, heavier with water, but familiar in structure. You remember the empty outline in the orderly arrangement near the doorway. You remember how the absence felt louder than the rain. Now the absence has a body again. You bring it back toward shelter, and you notice something that surprises you. There is no sharp relief in the village. No, finally, no invisible finger pointing at who failed. The elder's calm remains calm. The moment is treated as restoration, not victory, as if the real goal was never to be right, only to be balanced. Under the roof's gentle protection, the bundle is placed on a woven surface and carefully opened just enough to check what matters. Wet herbs are loosened so they can breathe. A cord is untangled and relaid in a clean line. Pieces that were wrapped are rewrapped with steady hands. Nothing is scolded for getting soaked. Rain happened. That is all. The village doesn't waste energy being angry at weather. You help, guided by small gestures. Hold the cloth here. Lift the corner there. Keep the cord from twisting into knots it didn't choose. You're careful the way you were careful at the cenote's edge. You're attentive the way you were attentive at the weaving frame. And you realize those earlier lessons weren't separate stops. They were training for this exact moment, learning how to touch things that matter without turning them into a performance. When the offering is reassembled, it looks simpler than your anxious mind expected. No grand flourish, just a bundle returned to its purpose, corrected with quiet care. The loop of cord you found earlier is brought out from your cloth fold and matched back to its place, the way a missing stitch is returned to a garment. When it's tied, the knot sits snug and humble, doing its job without applause. The village's rhythm smooths out again, like the roof's drum returning to lullaby. You feel it in your own body. The tight place in your stomach releases. The last edge of adrenaline dissolves. Your shoulders sink as if they've finally been given permission to be heavy. And the most soothing part, maybe the part your nervous system needed most, is how no one wears blame like armor. There is only the quiet fact of the missing thing, the steady work of finding it, and the gentle act of putting it back where it belongs. In the end, balance is restored, not through punishment, but through attention. With the offering restored and retied, the village's night settles into a quieter kind of order. The hearth holds a small, steady glow, like a protective ember of tomorrow. Rain continues, but now it feels tired too, falling in softer threads, almost apologetic for the earlier drama. You sit with mud drying on your fingers and a calm weight in your bones, listening to the roof translate water into rhythm until your thoughts stop trying to invent emergencies. Sleep comes in a way you don't force. It arrives like warm smoke drifting upward, slow and inevitable. Your body folds into rest on a woven mat, the same kind of weave your hands tried to imitate, and you notice the strange comfort of being held by something made from patience. The last thing you're aware of is the village breathing around you. Small movements, a fire tended lower, rain tapping the thatch like a lullaby that knows your name, even if no one here speaks it aloud. When you wake, it's not to an alarm, not to a screen screaming for your attention, but to a shift in air. The rain has thinned to a mist, and the world feels rinsed, as if the jungle has taken a long drink and finally relaxed its shoulders. The darkness lightens at the edges. A pale seam of dawn begins to stitch itself into the sky, barely visible through leaves and roof lines. You sit up slowly because your body has learned here that rushing is a form of disrespect, mostly to yourself. Your cloth wrap is still around your shoulders, damp at the hem, warmed where it touches your skin. The hearth's ashes glow faintly, and the air carries that delicious in-between scent, smoke that has cooled, earth that has been watered, plants exhaling into morning. The elders move through the space with quiet purpose, not urgency, purpose. You rise and follow, bare feet meeting cool stone, then packed earth. Everything outside shines. Leaves bead with water like small glass ornaments. The paths glisten dark, and the stepping stones you placed during the storm still sit where you left them, smug little heroes in the mud. It's oddly satisfying seeing your effort remain in the world instead of disappearing into a timeline. You're guided toward an open area where the first light can reach. The rain's last mist hangs like a veil, and beyond it, the jungle looks soft, almost tender, as if it's pretending it wasn't trying to drown your plans a few hours ago. You feel the faintest urge to roll your eyes at nature's mood swings, but your face stays relaxed. You're learning to be amused quietly. At the center of the space, a shallow bowl of ash rests on a low stone surface. Not messy ash, kept ash. Fine and pale, like a soft dust that remembers fire's warmth without needing the flame. Nearby, a small bundle of herbs sits ready, green, gray, and fragrant, the kind of scent that clears your head the way clean water clears a mouth. The village gathers in a way that feels natural, not staged. People stand with enough space between them that air can move. No one blocks anyone else's view. The whole arrangement feels like the roof design, layered, breathable, cooperative. You take your place where the elders guide you, not in front, not hidden, simply included, which is its own kind of gift. Your attention is drawn upward as the light strengthens. The sun doesn't burst in like a spotlight. It arrives gradually, filtered through wet leaves, turning mist into pale gold. The first real beam touches the edge of a roof, then a stone, then your hands, and you feel warmth spread across your knuckles like a small blessing you didn't know you wanted. Emotion invites you to place your hands over your chest. You do, palms resting where your heartbeat lives. Another motion suggests your breath. Slow in, slower out. The air tastes clean and cool, with a hint of smoke and crushed herb. You inhale and feel your ribs expand the way they should. You exhale and feel your shoulders drop, the way they've been refusing to all week. Ash is lifted between fingers and rubbed gently, not smeared dramatically, just touched. Forehead, maybe, or the back of the wrist, a light mark that feels less like decoration and more like reminder. The sensation is soft and powdery, and it surprises you how grounding it feels. Your modern brain wants to label it symbol, ritual, tradition. Your body understands it more simply, a tiny cool touch that says, "You are here." A small bundle of herbs is moved over the ash and then waved gently through the air, not to impress anyone, but to change the air itself. The scent blooms, sharp at first, then comforting, like eucalyptus and damp sage had a quiet conversation and decided to help you breathe. Your lungs relax, your thoughts quiet. You realize how rarely you let air be an experience instead of a background necessity. You watch the village's movements and understand the shape of what's happening without needing translation. This is renewal, but not the flashy kind. It's a reset of attention, a reminder of balance. Rain came, storm surged, the missing offering returned. Now dawn arrives, and the day is welcomed like a guest who deserves respect. You keep breathing with the group. Inhale, exhale, until the breath itself becomes the ceremony. The rhythm feels like the roof's rain drum from last night, like the over and under weave you learned, like the rings on the cenote surface spreading and fading. Everything here teaches the same lesson in different forms. Repetition can soothe, and steadiness can restore. For a moment you feel an almost tender embarrassment at how complicated you've made your life, how often you've treated rest like a reward you have to earn. Here, gratitude is practiced like breathing, small, constant, unforced. You don't need to announce it. You only need to notice what is holding you. A roof that listens, a village that moves with care, a morning light that arrives whether you deserve it or not. As the sun climbs a little higher, mist thins, and the village's shapes sharpen. The ceremony's quiet focus eases, not ending with a bang, simply dissolving back into living. But you carry the feeling in your chest like warm ash, a soft mark, a steady breath, a gentle light that makes even your tiredness feel safe. The sun rises higher, gently melting the mist's last fragments until they become invisible humidity on your skin. The village moves back into its quiet rhythm, like a song returning to its refrain after a tender bridge. Chickens wander out from hidden corners, shaking droplets from their feathers. Smoke thins from breakfast fires. The thatched roofs shine faintly gold. You stand there for a moment, letting the warmth find you. Your hair still smells faintly of the storm, rain water, wood smoke, and earth, and you realize it's not a bad perfume. The elders begin to disperse in slow, steady motions. One checks the hearth's ashes, another inspects a wall for damp. Another walks toward the gardens with a woven basket balanced easily on one hip. It's not ceremony anymore, it's living. You follow without question, drawn by the ease of their tasks. The gardens are radiant from the storm, green piled on green, leaves rinsed free of dust. The earth here is rich and black, smelling alive. You kneel beside one elder as they press seeds into softened soil, their hands slow and sure. Without needing instruction, you copy the motion, fingers parting the ground, tucking a seed into it as gently as if it were something fragile you might wake. The act feels ancient and embarrassingly pure. No overthinking, no timeline, no metric, just cause and effect. Touch soil, place life, cover lightly, breathe. You can feel the rhythm from yesterday's weaving still in your body. Even this, pressing, patting, smoothing, feels like another pattern learned through repetition. When you straighten up, your knees carry a fine dusting of wet soil, and you don't brush it away. You're almost amused at how quickly vanity evaporates when usefulness replaces it. Across the garden, a child you hadn't noticed before is laughing softly at something, a snail maybe, or a puddle pretending to be an ocean. The sound is so ordinary, it feels sacred. Later, the elders bring you to the shaded space near the courtyard again. It's time for leave-taking, though no one says the words. They simply begin to gather what you'll carry. The now dry cloth you were lent, a small piece of woven fiber from your practice, and, surprisingly, a tiny polished stone, smooth, oval, river-colored. An elder presses it into your palm. You understand immediately that it's not a gift of ownership, but of memory, a portable piece of calm. You tuck it into your pocket, feeling its cool weight settle like punctuation at the end of a very long sentence. The elder's expression is soft but matter-of-fact, as if saying, "Everything we gave you was already yours, you just forgot where to find it." You wander once more through the village paths, not led now, but following instinct. The cenote glimmers faintly through the trees, still and dark as polished glass. The air there feels heavier, more secret, like the jungle is whispering to itself. You pause at the edge and see that rainwater has risen slightly, turning roots at the border into half-drowned sculptures. You drop your hand into the pool, and coolness races up your arm, a quiet farewell. On the way back, the murals wait under their wide roof. Morning light softens the paint, and the figures seem calmer now, less instructive, more companionable. You trace the air above one of the shapes, the curve of a bird's wing, the arc of a sun, and realize that while the images haven't changed, your eyes have. Yesterday you saw history. Today you see conversation. When you return to the main shelter, the village feels like it's inhaling after a long night. The air is warm, bright with new moisture. A faint breeze passes through and carries the mingled scents of ash, maize, and green things. The fire is being rekindled for morning cooking, smaller now, with flames so thin they look like ribbons. You stand there caught between worlds. You think of the rain that tried to unmake everything and failed. You think of the hands that fixed what water scattered, and the trust that moved through the storm like a current. You think of your own restless life outside this jungle, your alarms, your lists, your tendency to chase things that don't love you back, and for a heartbeat you feel the temptation to stay. But the elders' eyes meet yours, and the look they give you is both kindness and dismissal, the best kind of farewell. Their silence says, "The village is not a hiding place, it's a mirror. You came here to see what calm looks like when it's practiced daily. Now you have to carry it somewhere it's needed." You bow your head, not deeply, just enough, and whisper nothing, because nothing needs to be said. The elder closest to you nods once, approving the quiet. You step back into the open light, your footprints already filling with thin threads of drying rain. As you begin your slow walk out of the village, the roofs shimmer like scaled wings in the sunlight. The jungle hums around you, distant insects, a low bird call, the lingering percussion of water dripping from leaves. And as the path narrows, you realize you're not really leaving anything behind. You're taking it with you. The patience of the weavers, the rhythm of the rain, the hush of the cenote, the warmth of the hearth, the steadiness of hands that never hurry. Each step forward is an echo of that lesson. Each sound of your foot in the wet soil is the village reminding you to move gently, to carry attention like fire, to walk as if the ground is sacred and always listening. The path home begins where the village's edge dissolves into green shadow. Rain hangs in the air like breath that hasn't decided whether to fall again or drift away. The elders walk with you only to the first bend of the trail, where the jungle's quiet becomes its own kind of gate. They stop there, not blocking, not insisting, simply pausing, like punctuation at the end of a long story. You turn, and they nod once. That's the entire farewell. No speeches, no dramatic music, only the soft rustle of palm leaves and the knowledge that you were allowed to stay as long as you needed, and not a minute more. Their stillness says, "You've been shown what patience looks like in motion. The rest is yours to remember." You start walking. The jungle accepts you again, damp and forgiving. Every step presses water from the soil in small sighs. The light filters through the canopy in strips, gold tangled with green, and the smell, wet bark, crushed fern, the faint sweetness of decay, makes you feel like the planet itself is exhaling around you. You catch yourself glancing back more than once, but each time you do, the village looks smaller, almost shy, retreating into foliage and mist. The roofs blend with the jungle's own rhythm, becoming another layer of landscape. You realize that if you came back tomorrow, you might not find it immediately. Maybe that's part of its protection. Maybe that's why it endures. Your feet remember the path now, the curve past the mossed stones, the rise before the stream, the cluster of vines that mark the halfway point. You recognize every sound, the low chatter of insects waking in the sun, the drip of water from a leaf that holds on just long enough to be noticed, the gentle creak of branches that sound like slow laughter. The polished stone in your pocket presses softly against your thigh. It feels cooler than the morning air, smooth as intention. You touch it with 2 fingers and think about how absurdly small it is, how easy to lose, and yet how much weight it carries because of what it means. You imagine showing it to someone later, trying to explain where it came from, what it represents. You realize you can't. The story wouldn't survive translation. Some things aren't meant to be retold. They're meant to be lived into the next thing. A breeze stirs the trees and sunlight finds your face. It's the kind of light that doesn't glare. It settles. It feels like a benediction for those who endured a long night and came out not braver, not wiser, but simply softer. You let it rest on your eyelids for a moment, eyes closed, head tilted slightly upward, like a plant remembering what it means to grow. The path widens near the stream. Water runs clear again, murmuring against stones. You crouch to rinse your hands, watching the ripples distort your reflection. You barely recognize the face there, not because it looks different, but because it finally looks present. The line between rest and movement blurs, and you smile a little at the thought that maybe both are the same thing when done with attention. When you rise, the sound of the village still echoes faintly behind you. Not words, not drums, just the steady rain-like rhythm of life continuing without you. The thought doesn't sting, it comforts. You were never meant to be the story's center. You were only a note in its ongoing song. So you walk on, each step quieter than the last, until the jungle's voice grows softer, until the path begins to fade into whatever comes next. And as you leave the sheltering green behind, the rain starts again, light, patient, familiar. You don't reach for cover, you just lift your face to it and let it fall. Grateful to be reminded one last time that even the sky knows how to begin again. The rain fades to mist again, as if someone is turning the world's volume knob slowly down. Your heartbeat, once a drum for surviving storms, slows to match it. The trees sway less, then stop. You feel the weight of exhaustion arrive, not the heavy kind that demands collapse, but the soft kind that finally allows it. You imagine lying down somewhere dry, the air warm and still, the sound of water nearby. The elders' calm voices still echo faintly, though you never heard them speak. You feel their rhythm inside your chest, steady as a second pulse. The story they shared isn't something you'll remember in words. It will stay in your gestures, in the pauses between your next sentences, in the way you pour water without spilling, in the patience you show when nothing goes as planned. The jungle's darkness fades behind your eyelids, replaced by the steady glow of imagined firelight. You can smell damp wood, taste smoke, and hear the small sound of rain on palm thatch. You're safe. You're home, wherever you are. The sound becomes softer still, just breath now. Your shoulders sink into invisible ground. You're wrapped in the scent of rain and smoke and green life. The polished stone cools your palm, anchoring you to a world that keeps spinning kindly. Everything slows. The rain turns to a murmur. The murmur fades to a hum. The hum becomes silence. And in that silence, the elder's lesson whispers once more. Move gently, hold what matters lightly, and let the world teach you its rhythm. End of story. Sweet dreams.